Hello, everybody. My name is Cabry Prater, and for the persuasive speech, I have chose to do my topic over something I feel very strongly about, and it is the death penalty. So, the death penalty should be abolished in the United States because it is implemented unfairly and insignificantly at times, and it actually doesn't aid in the cost or the healing of families at all. When you think of death, I'm sure you think of maybe a car accident or a long-term illness, but that's actually not always the case. In some cases, the government is granted the power to take some people's lives. The death penalty is considered constitutional under the 8th Amendment because it's apparently fair, uncruel, and its expenses aren't extraordinarily large, which is false. So currently, 32 states use the death penalty. But is it actually accomplishing anything? You cannot right one wrong by creating another. Therefore, taking an offender's life for taking someone's life isn't really serving anybody justice. Many people that are on the death row are actually too poor to get a good lawyer that can even handle their type of case. Other than that, a lot of times there has been proof showing that people that are on death row are only on there because they were tortured to the point of admitting to crimes they did not commit. However, let's be real. There are credible points that show that the death penalty is not right. More executions will always equal more murders. One study that was conducted by Thornstein Stellium found that in the years of 1989 up to 2000, New York had no executions, California had 1 execution, and the great state of Texas had 289 executions. Even though the murder rates and patterns were the exact same through these states, Texas had 289 executions. So the debate about the death penalty wages on, but it's time to take a closer look at capital punishment in the United States and separate the fact from the fiction. So many think that the death penalty makes good sense. It costs less than paying for a convicted murderer to live out their natural life on the state's dime. While the cost varies from state to state about the death penalty, according to Amnesty International, conservative estimates by the California Commission for the Fair Administration of Justice determined that California could save $125.5 million annually by abolishing the death penalty. Many believe that the death penalty is morally okay because only the most horrible of criminals get it. However, that's not actually the case. Almost all of the inmates that are on death row were not able to afford a counsel that could handle their case, and this means the likeliness of ending up on death row was actually according to socioeconomics instead of the brutality of the crime. And race also plays a key role in the death penalty. So, Amnesty International notes that 77% of death row victims have been executed for killing white victims. This is disproportionate considering African Americans make up roughly half of the homicide rate. So, this brings the question, is the death penalty racist? The death penalty has always been applied in such a racist way, if we're being honest. It's always been racially biased. This bias comes from a few different factors. So, it doesn't just have to do with the defendant's skin color, but as well as the victim's skin color. When it comes down to the death penalty, the lives of whites are much more valuable than minorities, apparently. Because let's bring in some death penalty facts for a second. For starters, in the United States population, African Americans equate to nearly 12%, while in death row in the United States, African Americans equate to 42%. So, even though African Americans commit nearly 50% of these murders each year in the United States, but nearly 80% of these victims in the capital punishment cases were white, and only a small percentage were 14 of African Americans. So if that is not enough for you, out of the 18,000 executions that have taken place in United States history, only nearly 42 of these executions were for a white person killing a black person. Let me just say that again. 18,000 executions, only 42 were for a white killing an African American. And A former prosecutor in Cook County, Illinois, known as Michael Goggin, admitted that their district attorney was running a contest. This contest included their prosecutors to convict defendants to a total weight of 4,000 pounds. So after the men and women got convicted, they had to go to a room and weigh, because they were playing a race game to see how many African Americans they could get up to 4,000 pounds first. So, is the death penalty biased towards guilty people? In short, the death penalty doesn't see the good in people. People can change. People should be allowed second chances. Most people on death row didn't even get a first one, let alone a second chance. Many of the inmates grew up with violence, neglect, poverty, racism, and many mental issues, and those traits right there are just making of a cocktail for a criminal. Stacey Tookie Williams was once leader of the Crips gang out in Los Angeles, and he went on to write a series of anti-gang books, and he even went and spoke at schools. And they say that he made a bigger impact than any of the government implied services have for any of them. But even though all that, Williams was still executed back in 2005. So support for the death penalty continues to drop. So if you happen to find yourself on this side of the issue, here's some things you can do about it. You can work with organizations working to abolish the death penalty, and you can donate to the Innocent Project, which works to challenge old DNA with new DNA. So I hope you learned something, and thank you for listening.